Hello again, and thanks for tuning in. We're going to practice today mindfulness-based anxiety reduction's approach to healing, selecting exposure to disturbances. This will show you how you get better. You not only can expose yourself to the disturbance, you can also expose yourself to the maladjusted coping mode that's producing your complexes also. So in other words, a core emotional wound or fear ties together with a maladjusted coping mode, and BUMO, you have your neurosis, you have your complex, so to speak. It perpetuates the problem, and you are actually sort of trapped, if you will, in a worldview that may not be fully realistic, may not be representative of the current moment as it is. So, mindful exposure to disturbances. I'm going to begin the practice by relaxing completely if I can. Yeah, and I naturally took a breath, didn't I? Yeah, so we see that relaxation in the breath. Seems to be related. We notice the breath. That means that we divest our attention from our anxieties. Let's think about that for a moment. So it's a value shift. If you're anxious, you're valuing the content of your anxiety. When you select to relax completely and enjoy your breath, you are divesting, devaluing that worrisome event and entering a rather non-judgmental state of being, perspective. And indeed, when we modulate, when we shift out of our worries to the meditative placement of attention, we are reducing judgment, and we are practicing the very same skill that liberates us from chronic anxiety. As the emotional wound strikes awareness in a automatic fashion, we will here now select to image a disturbance, and so that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to begin the practice. I already started by relaxing. And now I recall an upsetting event. An anxiety. And I try to work that image up, that disturbance. Recalling people, places, and things associated with that disturbing event. Allowing strong images to hold attention to that element that produces anxiety. I'll let you know right now that the one that I have selected has to do with humiliation. being seen in an unflattering light, judged to be less than adequate, it is a exposure to the idea of being unjustly characterized as less than I am. I can sense the defensiveness. And then I shift, recognizing I'm the witness of my mental events. I accept this event completely. And I utilize the relaxation response. And awareness naturally brings me into the current moment. My mind begins to see and feel air and hear things, and notices the reality before me. And then I drop all narratives. And then I do a second exposure to the very same memories that disturb me. And I recall images of those that would be critical. Might trigger the theory that I am insufficient, inadequate, perhaps irresponsible, less than, dishonored. And then again I modulate from that, radically accepting my experience completely. Though I am sitting upright, I use the relaxation response. And then interrupt all narratives. And look straight on to the wonderful mystery of experience in non-conceptual awareness. So I had two exposures. I deliberately exposed myself to the disturbance. I accepted the experience, then modulated to the meditative placement of attention, and then stopped all narratives, so there's no longer a story of me. And in that time, you have a divestment. You're divested from your self-conception. Your worldview judgment is reduced dramatically. You still have discrimination in awareness that still does occur. However, what you do is you let your breathing breathe, you let your eyes see, you let your ears hear, rather than giving yourself the idea that it's you doing it. These things are events of nature. And you're seeing in that the decentering, not taking things personally, not organizing events personally. So this was mindful exposure to disturbances. It is part of the strategy of mindfulness-based anxiety reduction. I would suggest to you that mindfulness-based anxiety reduction has apprehended the healing process, and it's probably a good idea if you are having difficulties with your emotional wounds to consider buying the book Mindfulness-Based Anxiety Reduction. It's on Amazon.com, and it uses 6 treatments where you expose yourself at first to just deep breathing, to this current moment. You learn to meditate. Then we move to the third one, Disturbances, the one we did today. Then we have also exposure to the maladjusted coping modes that tie up with our disturbances. For example, if you're humiliated, you may want to look good. If you have that humiliation schema, the defectiveness schema, you may be over-invested in presenting yourself as if you are not. So it's a false presentation, so you can expose yourself to that also. Then we expose ourselves, there's another exposure to images, and in that we sort of normalize exposures to the images of people that might disturb us, or not. It could be an image of yourself, and we come into communion with that image. We also let it go in the same fashion. We come into the session, we modulate out of that awareness of those images that might oppress us. And lastly, very importantly, we are indeed manifestations of nature, operating in the field of nature. We are supported by the universe. This is an exposure to the sense of well-being. We actually modulate from that also. Very critical. We are not selecting disturbances only to modulate into non-judgmental awareness. We are even the comforting thoughts that may well have an adaptive element to them. We allow that exposure to relax us, and in that relaxation we return to the same place. That same place is the meditative placement of attention. It is that steady observer. It is the non-judgmental perspective. It is the wisdom mode of the healthy adult. Great pleasure talking with you, and thank you again for tuning in. The next exposure video that we'll do will be mindful exposure to maladjusted coping modes. However, you have yourself a microcosm of the process here and now. I encourage everybody to get some training in meditation. I'm sure the people who are watching, and I thank you again for your watching, are many of us, of course, are acquainted with non-conceptual awareness as taught in Zazen, the Zen Buddhist approach, and insight meditation or Vipassana, and of course the Advaita approach, the non-duality approach, also resonates with this perspective. Thank you again for tuning in. We'll see you again.